Hello, welcome back to the Conifer Wood. Hope you all had a good holiday. This video is going to be about the specifics of Sally's design, refining it until I can get a model to work from. This video is not going to include Osam's design as well. I had originally planned to have them both together, do the same treatment at the same time, but as I found out, it takes quite a long time to make a proper character model sheet for just one character, and trying to do two would mean that this video would be coming out in another 2 weeks, so it'd take me an entire month to do that. So I'm just going to put out this video now and tackle Osam a bit later. So I started off with a brainstorm session with my friend Helena, who is an incredible artist. You could follow her in the links. What we were trying to do was, as is probably going to be a running theme in all of these videos, is to start off with something that we can then work from. This was taking the ideas that I had made in the sketchbook in the previous video, and just kind of like ideating on that basically. So we were drawing at the same time, and we came up with these two. They're quite different actually, although I think the vibe is generally the same. With mine, I wanted to go for this rounder look. I used the roll, tuck and pin haircut that I really liked from the sketches earlier. Also in my sketch, I wanted to try and get that sort of cartoony look that I was talking about in the previous video. Just trying to expand on that a bit more, trying to get myself out of the realistic streak that I think I was on. Helena went for more like square face, a bit more kind of masculine in her look. She's got these like hard features, but also you can see that she's like quite easygoing in the two sketches at the top. And also very kindly, she did some really nice drawings of some clothing as well. So we've got some overalls, we've got a sort of casual way of wearing them, also a really cool sort of fisherman's poncho, which I think is super sweet. And so after doing this kind of ideating session with Helena, I moved back into portraits, and I wanted to try and like push and pull the features a bit more, try out some different hairstyles with each different face. So I made this matrix here. We've got facial structures in the rows, and in the columns we've got the different hair. So just quickly going through the facial structures in the rows. In the top row we've got quite a sort of round open face. This was directly taken from the sketchbook before. The second row we've got more masculine, more kind of aquiline features, springboarding from what Helena drew for me, taking that kind of square look and putting it into my style. The third is more of kind of slightly more mature look. Fourth is like very round, and the last one is the sort of a longer face. And these are just sort of the archetypes that I was thinking of. The other thing that I was trying to do was to try and keep them vaguely cartoony, so staying away from that realism that I was ending up doing in my sketches, but also trying not to be like too cartoony, because I don't know if that would translate too well to a 3D model. So the one I ended up going for was in the bottom row, the third one along. For me, I think the facial structure is strikes a nice balance between youthful naivety and maturity. So the masculine one in the second row, I think that's quite mature, as is the third row. But it's a little bit too much. For Sally as a character, I kind of want her to be, she's new to all of this, so I want her to have a kind of a fresher face. But then the first and fourth rows are kind of too far the other way, they're too naive. So the last one really strikes that balance quite nicely. Also, I'm going with the roll, tuck and pin haircut. That is a favourite. The natural pulled back and the short natural also really work with this face structure. But in the end, I just find that the roll, tuck and pin, like there's a nice kind of sort of form to it. It's quite short, so I think that fits her character quite well, and I just think it looks the nicest. There's nothing much more I can say about it than that. I just turned my light on. I hope that doesn't ruin the continuity of this video too much, because we're in the middle of an English winter at the moment, and the sun sets at like 4 o'clock. So what we're moving on to next is outfit design. So I transplanted the head that I liked back onto a body, and did a couple of ideas about what sort of clothes that Sally would be wearing, and I think this is a really important thing for expressing her character. So going from left to right, starting off we're going with a sort of engineering boiler suit kind of look. She's sort of an engineer. She's not really, that's not exactly her job, but it's kind of adjacent to that kind of thing. And there will be sort of maintenance things that she'll have to do on the outpost, which I think a boiler suit is quite sort of apt for. The second angle is a more kind of less uniformed workwear, so the kind of clothes you'd wear if you're mending your tractor in the field. But I like the colour, and I sort of like the slightly more casual way that she's wearing it. And then third, we're going like straight into full-on casual. I was thinking that like she's living on this outpost, she's there 24/7, and most of that time is not going to be like full-on work. So she wouldn't be wanting to wear a uniform all the time. I think that'd be really uncomfortable and kind of lame. Don't worry about the bag, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the rest of it's cool, I think. The fourth is like a proper uniform. I was watching Ahsoka at the time, so I had that kind of like Imperial Starfleet kind of vibe going on. I don't think this is appropriate. I don't think the company would like get her to wear this, but I was just seeing how far I could go with like the formality of her clothes. And then fourth, I was talking in a previous video, I'm not quite sure where at this point, that this is a sci-fi. At the moment there aren't a lot of elements in there that kind of show a sort of futuristic element to it. So this one I was trying to sort of like outfit her in like some cool tech wear stuff, and what I like about this one is that even though like all the belts and like braces and suspenders and whatever else are kind of like they're fashion coded, I do think that they could be tweaked into like workwear. I'll be getting onto this in a sec, but she'll also be wearing a harness when she goes up the tower to catch the spark. And as there are already like harness elements in this outfit, I think that kind of ties in quite nicely. And then the last one was taking cues from like 19th and 20th century fishermen. They've got these long waterproof jackets, big welly boots, the knitted turtleneck. Or is it a polo neck? No, it's turtleneck, isn't it? Knitted turtleneck jumper, all of these things. And actually, this is the one that I ended up liking the most. I think the colours are great, they really suit her. Again, striking a balance between like uniform and casual wear, I think that could be quite comfortable to wear. Not the wellies, they're really awkward, I hate wearing wellies. But I think the rest of it, I think it's also the only outfit in this lineup that pays attention to the sorts of weather that she'll be out in. Like she's in the middle of the ocean, there's going to be spray, it's going to be windy, there's going to be rain, it might be cold. None of the others really sort of address those aspects of living on the outpost. So I think that coat, the thick jumper, the waterproof boots, all really tie that in quite nicely and tell a story by themselves about what it's like living on this outpost. So the last part of this video I'm going to be talking about the model sheet that I made, that is the sort of culmination of all of this work that I've been doing. And this model sheet is basically there to serve as a guide for when I come to sculpting Sally in Blender. In part it's saying this is kind of like the final design, and in the other part it's giving me a template to work from. So I've got all the dimensions of her body here, I've got her in various different, so I've got front, left, right and back, so that I can sculpt her properly, and I've really tried hard to make sure that the clothing that I drew in the next slides sort of work as clothing. As I'm going to be making them myself, they actually need to like go on her body, they need to fit her, they need to be tailored well, and they need to look convincing as if they were real. So this was quite an interesting exercise to do. I've never done anything like this before, and I actually found that because I've been drawing Sally in profile all the time, like she's always facing the camera, turning her to the side and trying to work out how to draw what I had drawn in portrait now in profile was really quite challenging. Like her face in particular, the way that I'd drawn it, her nose and mouth are quite low down in her face and far away from her eyes proportionally. And trying to get that to work in profile was actually a bit of a challenge. It's really quite difficult to make a face look realistic when the mouth is like that far away from the chin. The other thing is that her hairstyle was a similar kind of problem. I'm not familiar with this kind of hair. As you can see, I don't have that kind of hair. I've never styled any hair like this, so I'm not intimately familiar with how roll, tuck and pin like actually works, like what it feels like to wear, what is the easiest way to do it like what defines the way that it's styled. While this was taken from reference of photos of women who had this hairstyle, what I did not really understand, because I only had pictures of the front pretty much, or like 3/4 view or something like that, so I was not aware of how it worked in the back or like on the sides. What I've got here in the front facing one is I've got these smaller pieces. I'm not really sure what they call them. They're not braids, are they? But anyway, you can castigate me in the comments for getting that wrong. They're sort of going up like this, and that works in profile because it's a flat drawing. I don't really have to worry about how the hair gets from there to there. It just, from the appearance of it, it goes from there to there, so in a sort of flat plane. So when I turned her to the side, it quickly became apparent how that didn't really work, and you can see in these drawings I still don't think that the profile looks quite right, and I'm not sure how that's going to translate into the 3D model. That's all subject to change. What is important to keep in mind, I think, for myself, is that these drawings are not the canon Sally. They are just a guideline. They're there to help me model her. The model is going to be the canon Sally, so whatever works in the model is going to be the real thing. So just to go through these model sheets, this first one is for her body proportions, and this is just so that I can model her as a sort of as a baseline sort of body figure, a bit like a Barbie, and then dress her up later with the clothes. This next one is the first layer of clothes. We've got the knitted turtleneck jumper, we've got trousers, we've got a more refined style of boot. I was talking earlier about the wellies being like really inconveniencing, really like clunky, difficult to wear, and I think that would be a real problem when she gets the signal to go and catch this spark and she has to sort of run up 200 steps or something like that, and I don't think you'd be able to do that in wellies. So what this style of boot is trying to combat is like, how can it be comfortable and at the same time completely maneuverable? They're still boots, so they're going to be quite heavy anyway, but I think they'd be much better than a Wellington boot. And then the turtleneck jumper as well, I was looking at some patterns of real-life knitted sweaters, and looking at how like there's different panels in them, like the things that come from the armpits to the collarbone, that connect the sleeve to the sort of torso part. The third slide is like the safety harness and the helmet and the glove that she's going to be putting on as she goes up the tower. I really wanted to make these as believable as possible. I mean, everything in here is intended to be believable, but these I really wanted to get right because it's a kind of silly premise, getting someone to go up a tower and like jump off it. Like, you'd probably have a robot to do that for you in the future, or at least some kind of contraption. You wouldn't necessarily be getting humans to go up the tower and do that. In order to give you the space to suspend your disbelief willingly, rather than go too wild with it, I wanted to at least make something in there realistic, to sort of like hold your hand through that kind of leap of faith. So this harness is mostly faithfully copied from something that I found online, and I was also paying attention to how it could be put onto the model as well. So there's the carabiner in the middle there and the two clips on the legs, and I think that will make it put onable. When I make it and it doesn't work, then I'll have to rethink how that does, but I think it will. I think it will work. And then there's loads of sort of like loops and things like that to put on safety cables and things as well as like a supportive kind of foam, so that it's not like she's going to be jumping off a bit like in a bungee jump, and then when she comes down again, there's going to be a point where the cord tightens and she's going to be completely jerked in her body, and you'd really want something that doesn't like slice you in half when that happens. We've got the safety helmet, again, complete copy, and then the glove as well. By this point, I was absolutely dog-tired. It's a massive pain drawing a model sheet and making it in a way that feels like everything lines up, everything measures in the same way. And I was just going with the first thought that I had, which was a sort of modified baseball glove with some like greeble electronic-y bits put on it that kind of give you the impression that it'd be able to catch something made of lightning. It's quite kind of cobbled together, which is always what I had in mind for it, but in an operation where you've got a company that's built these like sophisticated outposts in the middle of the sea, I think it would be a really nicely designed thing, so I might come back to that in the future. Then the last one is the outer layer, which is the coat, and I've changed this quite a lot from the initial sketch that I made of it. I've kept the colours because I really like the colours. I'm thinking about this like, so the reason I put the harness on the underlayer and not this one is because I'm not sure you could really do that with a coat. There's pieces that sort of like wrap around your legs, and if the coat is in the way of that, I don't think that would really work. You'd have to sort of hitch it up over the top. So my idea is that when it comes to that point, if Sally's wearing this coat at that point, she's going to be taking it off and then putting the harness on. So this is designed to come off and on the model easily enough that it's not a massive pain. It's not sort of stuck to the model. And that's why I changed it from the original one, because I felt like that didn't really work. So that's the end of the model sheets. I said at the beginning that I was originally planning this to be Sally and Osam together, and when I realised it was taking a long time, I was like, oh, okay, maybe next video I can give Osam the same treatment, I can go through all of these steps again, but I'm sick of it. It's really boring. It's not boring, it's challenging, and I kind of don't want to do that immediately after having already done it. So what I'm going to do is, next video I will be looking at sculpting Sally in Blender, working out how the joints work. Hopefully I will also sort of print her out and assemble her and make sure that she's sort of opposable and she stands up and things like that, make sure the joints work. I'm going to be taking cues from Moonlight Jewel, who's an excellent creator, and she has this really fantastic way of making joints work in dolls with sort of elastic bands. So I'll be looking at things like that. Thinking about the sort of print quality, my flatmate has a printer, so that's great, I'll be using that. But it is an extruder, an FDM printer. And what Moonlight Jewel has is an Elegoo, which is like a resin printer. And the layer height can be a lot smaller, so you end up with much smoother prints. Whereas this FDM, I think the smallest is like 0.1 millimeter, which is quite small, but it's not quite small enough that you don't see them, particularly in like close up. So I might be thinking about ways of getting rid of that. I'll be thinking about painting it as well, so she looks like she's got skin tones rather than just like a single plastic colour. Possibly starting on the clothes. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take, so that's a maybe. And then also thinking about like face plates as well, so the Isle of Dogs, for example, with the different expressions and with the mouth flaps, they have, each one, they have a different face that you can like take off and put back on the model. So I'll be thinking about a mechanism to do that as well. I seem to remember there was a Domix video from like 10 years ago or something, where he was talking about the way that he animated voice flaps, and there's like a different mouth shape for each phoneme, and also like expressions and things like that. Yeah, so next week will be a fun video, I think. It's going to be lots of design, making, crafting, probably a lot of things not working, but I think that's good content, personally. Might be quite frustrating for me, but for you, it will be interesting, I hope. So until then, I hope you have a good one.